Hello everybody, and I'm really delighted to be here today talking with Caz Dolby from Wildcats Performing Arts School, an award-winning theatre school based at Stamford Arts Centre. So hi Caz, and thank you for joining me today.
Good morning. Good morning, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. I've got a lot to ask you, got a lot to cover today. I'd really like eventually during the conversation for us to try and think of some tips for parents who have got children that are really into their performing arts, that are trying to do classes and activities at home and fitting it in around their daily routine and their online lessons. We can talk about that in a second, but before we get to that, Caz, just give me an overview of your background and really why Wildcats and how Wildcats started.
Okay, so Wildcats has been going over 10 years. In that time, my son, who's now 16, he was 10 years ago, a youngster, and he was really interested in different bits and pieces. I remember we went to a party with him, a children's birthday party, and I sat there with another parent. He was enjoying the party, and we said, this is not very good. We're not enjoying this party at all. And that other parent said, I'm sure you could do this better. And with that sparked the beginning of Wildcats, which was parties. So I kind of started by going out on the party circuit and doing a little bit of entertaining kids, realised that actually I had quite a talent for that. And some of those children that went to the parties were asking for classes, saying you should do weekly classes. So that kind of sparked off a little class at Malcolm Sargent's school. There was about 5 kids. My son was one of them, which he will hate me for now. But we did that for a while. It grew. I also worked with Stamford Arts Centre. They allowed us to take some classes over to there. We grew the classes there. And very quickly, we kind of went from 10 students to 200.
Oh, wow.
And it kind of happened all very quickly, but this is very much around High School Musical time. So children's interest in musical theatre had just been awakened by Troy and Gabriella singing Breaking Free, and all of a sudden kids had started to understand a little bit of High School Musical and think, I want a bit of that. So that's kind of how it started, and over the years it's developed. The Wildcats name came from High School Musical, so obviously the basketball team. Nowadays, it doesn't really have that. The children don't really see that link between High School Musical and Wildcats. They just see it as Wildcats. But back in the day, that is where it came from. And it was really about bringing a little bit of musical theatre to children who perhaps were incredibly talented or perhaps had no experience at all and just wanted to gain a little bit of confidence. So, we developed the classes, we grew them. They were accredited by Lambda, so we do Lambda examinations. Things got bigger. We're obviously now at Stamford Arts Centre and based there, which is really great. Partnership with Stamford Arts Centre is really, really good because obviously they have a full programme of stuff on as well, and we can link in with that. So really, that's a kind of over 10 years overview in a tiny little description there for you. Yeah.
I mean, it's termly based, isn't it? It's like it's a school, you're termly based, and term started on Monday. So clearly you're not at the Arts Centre, you're not meeting and greeting and having all this fun with your students. How have you adapted your offering, Caz? Where are you now with everything, an online lesson?
Okay. So when this first started, we very much wanted to make sure that what we put out to parents was something really valuable, something that wasn't just going to be a bit of a Zoom class. We do the Zoom class and we go off and we forget about it. We wanted something that in 6 weeks' time, 8 weeks' time, when normality resumes, they could actually use that learning towards something and it was valuable. So I actually told the parents initially, this is back in March, that I wasn't too sure what we were going to do, and I'm going to, could they give me over Easter just to work it out? Yeah. We came up with, that's we as in me and some very committed teachers, came up with a plan of delivering the lessons online. We very much have stuck to business as usual, the same time of the lesson, the same teacher of the lesson, the same group. So we haven't merged groups together or anything like that. So those children that come online see the same person they would see face to face at pretty much the same time they would see them. They can wear their uniform. Everything we can do to make it feel like business as usual. And literally, so when we come back out of lockdown, it feels like normality still. So we've developed a programme.
Sharing some tips then for how that would work, because I can see, there's online school lessons, and then we're asking them again to log on and do something that they would only be a practical activity. It's hard to keep them engaged. What top tips have you got, Caz, that, you know, parents and students can take away today from this?
Yeah, so my top tips on this, first of all, from a teaching perspective, is very much discipline within a virtual classroom. So it can be very noisy, especially with younger children. They all want to say something. Somebody will have dogs in the background or music going on. There'll be lots of things going on. And we had our first week of lessons this week. So on Tuesday evening, our teachers delivered their first lessons. And we have a very clear policy of how we do that. So as an example, all the children go on mute. We explain what we're going to be doing. We explain the lesson outcomes. We play some music. We then ask each child individually to unmute themselves and say hello and just tell me what they've been doing during the day. And that starts to build a little bit of discipline in the classroom, so they understand about muting, about listening. So that's really, really important.
Secondly, as they carry on with their school lessons and learning to unmute and get involved, that will probably become slicker, won't it? And you'll get more out of it, I think.
Yeah, and some of them are more used to it than others. Obviously, everybody seems to be using different platforms. So obviously there's Zoom like this, there's the Google Meets, which we use, but there's many other platforms as well. And some of them are having to deal with 4 or 5 different apps. Some of them are only 7 and 8 years old. So it is hard for them, and it's making them feel like they're part of it, which kind of brings me on to the second one, which is about inclusivity and ensuring that every child in the class feels like they're part of that class. I can imagine if I was a child, the other side of the camera, I'd probably be the one possibly sitting there really quiet. I would never unmute myself, and I'd come off the call having not contributed a thing. And as teachers, I think we need to be really knowledgeable about that and asking people that are a little bit quiet in the call, you know, Neve, can you come off, can you unmute yourself? Tell me what you think about, what do you think about that song?
I suppose, you know, you might think that, you know, the assumption is that if a child is coming to performing arts class, that they are outgoing, but often it's only putting them on the stage that brings them out. So for them to sit here with a screen, and we've all about being careful online and, you know, not talking and having a camera switched off, suddenly to then undo all of those rules that we've drilled into them, it's quite hard, isn't it?
It is, and we actually work with a lot of children who don't come to Wildcats they don't want to be a performing arts star, they don't want to be on a West End stage. Sometimes the parents send them because they just want them to have some confidence. So some confidence to stand up in assembly at school, some confidence to stand up in front of their family and maybe do a song or recite something. So we have to be a little bit careful and make sure we're really inclusive. We do have a number of children with special needs as well, which obviously that creates another thing that we need to just be careful of online, making sure they're supported. But it's about making sure everybody feels supported. So we communicate with our parents. If anybody needs anything, they know they can email us. If anybody needs any more support, they can email us. So really keeping it inclusive and making sure everybody's involved.
And I guess finally, you know, to keep that kind of level of energy and fun that they take away from their class normally, you need to bring that into your lessons too. And you're naturally that kind of person. I'm sure your teachers are the same, otherwise they wouldn't be working with you. Give me an example of what, you know, that they could be doing to make, you know, something that would be a bit static and a bit, you know, one-dimensional, having a bit of a laugh with it as well.
So it very much depends on the age groups. So for our minis who are age 5 to 8, there's often very much story games that you can play where we start a story our side and then we'll say, Jack, unmute yourself. What happens next in the story? Show me the expressions that character makes when they do that story. Jack, mute yourself. Archie, unmute yourself. What happened next? And we kind of play games like that. When we move on to juniors, we can do object-based games. So I could pick something up off my desk and say, this pen is alive. Neve, tell me what's going to happen to the pen. And she will then create the story. So we've got a bit more action going on there. With seniors, I have actually done some quizzes online where I set some quiz questions. They can use their phones, they can access an app where they press different colours for different answers and they come up on the screen, and it's really inclusive. Everybody gets to be involved, a little bit of a competitive edge as well. But I can use that for lambda syllabus. So perhaps if we're talking about a particular musical, I can put together 10 questions about that music musical. And whilst they think they're just having a bit of a laugh on a quiz, actually I can work out who's got the knowledge to do that grade, who hasn't. So we're still getting all the teaching in, just having to be very clever how we do it and make sure it's fun from both sides, and giving them lots to do when they go away. So over Easter, we set a Moana project where some of our students had a little bit of a track and a little bit of of acting. They went away. Some of them had ironing boards out, pretending they were in a canoe, and then filmed it and sent it back to me. So it's just thinking outside the box a little bit, but it can be done.
Yeah, well done for adapting your business. I think that's a challenge obviously everybody is facing, and hats off to you. You briefly touched on Moana there. You've got quite a lot of highlights since you started 10 years ago, Caz. Give me a couple of ideas and those that you've personal highlights that you and your students, I suppose, have done over the time.
So we've performed lots and lots of different shows. Last summer we did High School Musical 2, which was brilliant. It was a really fun musical, and it wasn't about getting those best performers up on the stage necessarily. We did have some incredibly talented performers, but it was more about people having that experience of being able to be on stage. And doing High School Musical, obviously Wildcats came from High School Musical, so it was a little bit of a nice one to do over a summer. Back in February, just before all this happened, we did Ghost. Now, that was a massively challenging piece of theatre. We did it with age. I mean, we did have 9-year-olds in it, slightly changed the script to make it accessible to everybody, but it was an absolutely amazing experience. And what they got out of that was incredible. Seeing them on the stage performing such a challenging piece was fabulous. Our lead, Abby, and our lead guy Shay, only youngsters themselves, and they just got so much praise for that. So that's another big great thing that's happened this year. Hopefully there's loads more great things to still happen.
Yeah, absolutely, we've all got to look forward, haven't we, and make a plan and be positive about things. I did check your Facebook page out again before we came on here, and I can see that you've got an Arts Awards programme that you've been offering. How's that been going? It's only recently started though, hasn't it? So
it's still in its infancy at the moment. I'm still just recruiting a few more students, but the whole thing around that was, we've all got this time off, and whilst lots of students do have schoolwork, it's not taking up as much time as going to school and normal homework. And I kind of thought, how can we do something where students can actually get an accreditation that is equivalent to a GCSE on some of the levels in this time of lockdown? And years ago, I did some Arts Award training, and Arts Award is a recognised qualification. There are lower levels, there's higher levels. But actually, I contacted them and said, look, is there any way we can do this virtually? They were fabulous, gave me loads of ideas, and we can run this via Zoom, and students can achieve an Arts Award qualification virtually without having to step foot outside their house, which I think is absolutely amazing.
So that's
kind of ticked that box for me.
Above, is it?
Say again.
16-year-olds and above, is that?
No, this is for age 8 to 16. Okay. 8 to 16. So the 8 to 11 is non-accredited, so that isn't an official qualification. The 11s and overs, a bronze is sort of a low GCSE, a silver is a high-level GCSE, achievable during lockdown, during this period we have. But it really ticked a box for me in terms of doing something that's valuable and worthwhile, and actually coming out of lockdown and saying, look what I achieved. Yes, I was locked up at home, but I actually managed to get a certificate out of it.
How long does it run for?
So it runs till about the beginning of June is how we've planned it, with a bit of a note in there saying if lockdown is shortened, we will finish it with you anyway. If lockdown's extended, we can extend it a little bit. So if we do end up being free to go back to school after half term, then we will still obviously finish it off. But from my understanding, I mean, I will be a bit like every other business in Stamford. We don't really know. So we've gone with May half term. So it's a kind of a May project really, where they'll sit at home. They will have to watch a musical performance, but as an example, National Theatre are putting on some fab live performances live online, that you can watch a full performance. You would never have been able to do that before. So they can do their reviewing a musical, they can do their reviewing a play, because they can watch it here on the screen. So it's all doable. And actually, to come out of it in June, July and say, I achieved a bronze or silver arts award, I think would be a great thing for kids to do. So
really good. Well, thank you for thinking of that, and being, you know, using your initiative and trying to offer something in addition. That's really brilliant. That shows your creative mind being stretched yourself, Caz. So hats off to you. I think that we've covered so many topics today in this. I'd love to catch up with you again, if that's okay, once we're
definitely
lifted, to hear how your students have got on. It'd be great, I'm sure, for everybody to understand where you've gone with your classes, and what you yourself have taken from that. Yeah. I guess everybody can follow your Facebook page. You can sign up on there to receive all your updates and news there, and thank you for your time today. I really enjoyed chatting to you. You know, I hope you get the most as they can out of these classes and the effort that your teachers are putting in for them. So thank you very much, and we look forward to speaking and seeing you again soon.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.